Good evening. I'd like to welcome the department heads and staff to the Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019 Board of Trustees meeting. Call to order at 6 p.m. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Barry.
Here.
Mr. Morris. Here. Mr. Culp.
Here. We have no casualties from Operation Inherent Resolve and Freedom Sentinel, so we will move on to first responders casualties.
Good evening, Board. The following is a list of the first responder casualties for the weeks of January the 8th through January 20th, 2019. Police Officer Clayton Townsend, 26, Salt River Police Department, Arizona. End of watch January 8th, 2019. Police Officer Natalie Corona, 22, Davis Police Department, California. End of watch January 10th, 2019. Trooper Christopher Lambert, 34, Illinois State Police. End of watch January 12th, 2019. Sergeant Watasha Carter, 44, Birmingham Police Department, Alabama. End of watch January 13, 2019. Police Officer Sean Tucker, 30, Mobile Police Department, Alabama. End of watch January 20th, 2019. And K9 Haas, 3, Duluth Police Department, Minnesota. End of watch January 13th, 2019.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll now make a motion we pass the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Morris. Aye. Mr. Culp. Aye.
Next, we'll move into new business. Start with our acting administrator, Mr. Hess.
Thank you, sir. I have nothing formal for the board tonight. I do want to thank Mr. Mayberry and his crews for the last 2 weekends. They did a fantastic job cleaning our roads up, especially when you compare them to the neighboring communities. So I will turn it over to Captain Stegemeyer, who has a couple formal items and also has a little bit for discussion.
Thank you, sir. The first formal item we have this evening would be a motion for liquor permit. What we've received is it's for an application for a new liquor permit. It'll be a D5J that has been filed by the El Toro 2022 LLC, doing business as El Toro Mexican Bar and Grill, 2022 Miamisburg Centerville Road, Miami Township, Dayton, Ohio, 45459. The permit number will be 2466444. And Sergio Munoz has 100% of the voting interest and is the managing member. We have completed a check of the individual involved with this application and found no reason to contest this permit. Therefore, I'm requesting that the Board of Trustees pass a motion approving the new liquor permit and do not request a hearing with the Ohio Department of Liquor Control on this matter. The descriptions for the permit classes are as follows. D5J, which is the same as the D5, Community Entertainment District. D5 Spirituous Liquor for on-premises consumption only, beer, wine, and mixed beverages for on-premises or off-premises in originally sealed containers until 2:30 a.m. If there's any questions regarding the liquor permit for El Toro. Okay, having none, moving on to the second formal item that I have for the evening. In 2011, the Miami Township Police Department started a K9 program, with Officer Doug Hessler being the assigned handler, and the township purchased a Belgian Malinois named Corin as the K9 for the police department. At the time Corin was purchased, he was 1 year of age. Officer Hessler was assigned a 2004 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor as his K9 vehicle. Due to the age of Corin, who is now 8 years of age, and typically the working life of a dual-purpose police dog is between 7 and 8 years of old, and the need to replace the 2004 Ford Crown Victoria, we have decided to end the K9 program. We have found the program is not a cost-effective tool for the police department. To continue the program, the cost would be in excess of $60,000, and that could be used for other projects within the police department at this time. The K-9 program would be disbanded on February 3rd, 2019 at 7 a.m. hours. The Ohio Revised Code Section 9.16, which governs purchase of a police dog or police horse, states in Section B that upon the disbandment of the canine or equine unit of a law enforcement agency, the agency shall give the law enforcement officer to whom the dog or horse was assigned to the first chance to purchase the animal for a purchase price of $1. An officer who purchases an animal under this section shall assume all responsibility for the animal thereafter. In this case, Officer Hessler has expressed a desire to purchase canine corn. Do you have any questions regarding this matter that's brought before the board?
Do you have any idea what the cost savings to the township is going to be?
Well, upfront $60,000. Then thereafter, manpower on the road. He has 2 training days a month that he is not on the road. He takes quite a bit of comp time, so his actual time on the road, because of call-outs and everything, is going to be more people on the road. And then it varies year to year on canine costs. I think we budget about $3,000 or $4,000 for the care of the dog, either through veterinarian fees, and it varies. He recently, within the last 2 years, broke a canine. We had to have a titanium one put in that we didn't expect. Food that we pay yearly for, so 60 plus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have any other questions? The final item I'd like to bring to the board's attention this evening is kind of an informal write-in, so to speak. On January 15th of this year, the Miami Township Police Department conducted our annual use of force and our pursuit policy review as per our CALEA standards requirements. There's a couple of matters I'd like to bring before the board that's items of interest that I thought that would be interesting to share with you all at this present time. First of all, I'd like to point out that in the calendar year of 2018, the Miami Township Police Department responded to over 30,000 calls for service from the community. In 2017, the police department responded to 28,500 calls for service. It gave us an increase of about 1,482 calls for service in the calendar year, which is a pretty decent increase for us. The second item I'd like to point out to the board that actually was of great interest to me. I've been in law enforcement for about 38 years. I'm going to my 38th year this year. The township itself was involved in 35 use of force incidences in 2018. If you take that over by the calls for service, by 38,000 calls for service, the police department is using force in less than 0.1% of encounters with its citizens. That is an astronomically low percentage that I haven't heard in my 38 years. I'm going to take that a step even further. Of the 35 uses of force, 31% of them were resolved by using verbal commands. That is up from 28 verbal commands that were used last year. Escort commands or pressure points, we used 12 times in 12 instances, which is up from 11 from last year. And our taser usage actually went down from 11 usage last year to 10 this year. What this is telling me is our officers are actually going to find softer, more gentler ways to avoid conflict and to come to different resolution. This just in itself is just an astronomical for the amount of service that these guys and ladies are dealing with every day is something to be extremely proud of. What I also found to be very, and I'm old school, I started in the 1980s. We didn't have a lot of these CIT training events and de-escalation techniques that we're using today. Of all our use of force instances, we had 0 instances of where we used an impact or secondary weapon. We didn't use our baton, we didn't use OC spray, nor did we use our hands or feet for any type of striking of any of our suspects. Again, a statistic to be something very proud of with this police department. The final thing I'd like to bring up to the board is out of the 35 uses of force, 34 of the suspects that were the recipients of this force required very minor any type of first aid, which is generally administered by a medic responding to the scene before they were taken to in custody. Again, another statistic to show that our officers are doing what they're being trained to do. and that is to be more user-friendly, find alternative means to come to a conflict resolution. The final thing that I would like to bring to the trustees' attention is the review reviewed not just that we're doing things correctly when it comes to using force within the community and doing what we're supposed to do. It also reviewed that our workforce has increased by 1,400, as I told you earlier, 1,400 calls for service. Now, what I decided to do is do a little research on my own, and I researched the FBI uniform crime reporting, which is what we have to do uniform crime reporting stats to each year. What they tell us, what we try to do is we try to find what the national norm is for a lot of different operating procedures within the police department. And one of the things that came to my attention is manpower. What is the manpower allotment for most standard police agencies? And what this is suggesting this, and this is a national average. The FBI UCR states the national average for police officer to resident ratio is 16.8 officers per every 10,000 residents. 16.8 officers per every 10,000 residents. Now, what I did is take a look at Miami Township. We have a population that fluctuates depending on the time of year and the time of day. So I'm going to go with the low end. Let's say we have a 30,000 population. And we all know that it peaks times during the Christmas season or just in daytime population, that swells to double that very easily. We have 36 sworn personnel with only 26 people being dedicated to the road patrol. If you go by the UCR stats, based on the very national average, and I'm going on our low scale, based on 30,000 population, we should have a sworn strength level of 50.4 officers. 50.4. What that's telling me is we're doing the job, we're doing more with less resource, but what that also is telling me is we're on a slippery slope. We're on some thin ice here that if we don't do something about this misrepresentation, that at some point in time it's going to become an officer safety issue. And that's all I have to report, Chief.
Also, we only had 2 pursuits last year. They were both
Yes, sir.
assist other departments.
Yeah, they were not self-initiated. They were assist other agencies they were chasing felons into our area, and they all came to resolution with very minor collisions at the end. So,
I would also add that you're not only doing more with less, you're doing it extremely well.
yes, sir, I think we are, and thank you.
No other questions for the captain? Or?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, about a year ago, I did a comparison between Miami Township and, I can't remember the name of the community in New York, but the article was featured in the Wall Street Journal. It's a very similar community to Miami Township, and that community in New York, the state of New York, upstate New York, had somewhere around 70 officers in its police force, so twice the size of our force. So once again, I commend you, and I know you're doing a lot with a little, so to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayberry from Public Works.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. I don't have any formal items tonight, but I would like to thank Chief for his comments, and I'd like to also echo those and publicly state that the crews did an excellent job on 2 very difficult and challenging snow and ice events. Couldn't be more proud of them, so I thank them. Any questions for me?
Did we see any benefit from folks removing portable basketball hoops from the street? Do we have much of an issue with that this time?
Been kind of slow moving on that front because we had a very challenging leaf collection as well, and as soon as we got out of that, we kind of went straight into these winter events, and we had the holidays mixed in. So we're just now starting to ramp that front up and get those removed. So we had quite a bit of help initially from the police department, passing out the informational flyers, and we're going to continue to do that as well, but then see how effective those means are, and if we must, then we'll move on to some more formal processes and notifications. So I'll give you updates on that
Our
routine.
midnight shift passed out about 100 door hangers about the violations.
We did not clip any with our trucks this snow, so that's the positive sign. Hopefully there's a few less out there, but luckily we did not have any damages this year to date.
Mr. Chris Snyder,
Thank you.
Community Development.
Good evening, Board. I do have one formal item for your consideration tonight. It's Resolution 4, 2019. It's a resolution to authorize the Township Administrator to execute the necessary documents to secure an agreement with Montgomery County Records Commission Microfilming Board. This is an annual housekeeping measure for our department. Obviously, we retain our zoning certificate files and zoning commission and board of zoning appeals cases in perpetuity. And those have to go into archival storage. In the past, traditionally, we have done that by microfilming all of those records. The zoning certificate files themselves are later destroyed as part of our records retention policies. But so the Montgomery County has handled our microfilming services in the past. They both provide the service of converting those paper documents into a digital format and putting them on microfiche cards for us. They also store a duplicate of the microfiche at the county as a backup in their climate-controlled vault. This year, I do want to note, and I've noted in the memo that you have in front of you, that the costs for microfilm are increasing for the first time really since I've been here. The microfilm board has not raised those prices, but they are instituting a new policy because of the costs that they're facing in obtaining microfilm. Apparently, the number of manufacturers, needless to say, has decreased over the years that are providing that type of film, so the cost has skyrocketed from their standpoint. We have been, over the last couple of years now, transitioning away from needing to ultimately rely on microfilm solely as our backup storage. We had begun last year really extensively digitizing in-house all of our new zoning certificates and zoning case files. We've also been working with a company out of state to digitize a lot of our older microfiche cards to get those into a digital format. For a couple of reasons. One, just ease of use. We can retrieve those records much more easily in a digital format, and also to get away from the long-term necessity of needing to maintain a microfilm reader in-house. We do currently have one that's operational, but as that breaks down long-term, we anticipate the parts and things won't be available for that. So with that, the cost for storage is staying the same, but like I said, we are in a position now with our large format digital scanner that we can scan even large format prints. So we are going to be looking this year at the option of simply scanning all of our documents in, storing those digitally. We do have an option still with the microfilming board that would be less expensive of sending them all of our digital scanned and already pre-indexed images, and then we can have those put on a microfilm roll. The roll itself is a minimal one-time cost, but would be much less than having it all converted into the microfiche cards. So we are looking at, and we do have some options to ultimately reduce or eliminate this cost. But for long-term storage, microfilm is still used by a number of agencies throughout the country for archival storage. It is the one use that you don't have to worry about trying to upgrade your software for, and it is projected to last approximately 500 years. So a number of agencies are still using it for that long-term record storage. And when we're dealing, in our case, with the records of what people are allowed to do on their properties, and certainly those may extend down through families for literally hundreds of years, it is important to maintain these records and maintain an accurate description of what people are allowed to do or what their zoning classification was on their property. So with that, if you have any questions, you have some more detailed information in the memo, but at this time, we're just looking to execute that contract. Again, the contract just establishes the baseline prices that we would have if we use their services and the baseline price for the ongoing storage. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. So.
Mr. Kyle Hinkleman.
Good evening. I don't have anything formal for the board, but I did want to note, just as a piece to that, as well as a second item, but we back up everything within our network. We do it in 2 different locations. In 2019, it's very likely, instead of just backing up daily, we will be backing up hourly, or at least twice a day. primarily for the financial sector of our township, but we do backups. We have lots of security in that sense. But that goes into my second comment. I just want to let you know we did complete our disaster recovery document. So that is now formally completed, which we will present to you, I believe, the next meeting. We'll put a memo together. I will note there is sensitive materials in that, so it will be somewhat sensitive in that manner in terms of passwords and things like that, but it is available for the board for review. So I just want to make you aware, and we'll provide that to the finance department so they can use that for the audit next year.
Mr. Clay McCord.
Good evening, Board. I have one item for your consideration tonight, and it's Resolution 05-2019, and it's to address the expiring police levy at the end of 2019. If you recall, late last year, we asked the county auditor to certify a variety of options of millage rates, including a renewal and 4 replacement scenarios. Those certifications came in just after Christmas, and those have been included in your packet as far as the amounts that would be generated from each of those. And Chief Hess and I have discussed and have brought forward a recommendation for your consideration, as well as a kind of a layout of what each of those would generate and how those might be used for the next 5 years to replace the current 5.0 mil levy from, I believe it was 2014?
Correct.
Correct.
So one of the items why we want to look at a replacement is the biggest is to change the language to require these funds to be used to fund a police department and not fund police services as in contract from another agency. That's one of the items that in speaking to a lot of our residents, they're very happy with our police department. They don't want it contracted out. The other is, as Captain Stegemeyer says, the amount of people we have, or lack of people that we need. We are taking funds from, finally, seized funds from our 2 task forces are coming in. Mm-hmm. I'm using that money for all our capital items, for some training, and the money out of the levy is really for operating and personnel. We're looking at our JEDs and TIFs to be able to pull money from those to provide either, such as the Kings Ridge TIF provided the security upgrades for the buildings, did not come from any of the levy money. We're looking at the Austin TIFs and JED to help fund part of an officer for our southern district. What I'm looking for is to try to get up to where we need to be, so that we have more than a few officers working the street and just being totally reactive and start being proactive. So we are in the process now of hiring from our from our funding right now. But this would, in the recommendation that I am making, is that we go to the 5.5, which is roughly a $39 increase per 100,000 for our residents. That's going to provide enough funding to hire 3 additional people, maybe a 4th, depending on the actual numbers that come in, the funding, what percentage comes in, which will put more people on the road, so our coverage is better. Also, we'll most likely be able to now add another person to our detective section, because we're running that with 3 and a supervisor. And the amount of calls that get diverted there on our felonies, they're running all the time. Again, going away from being totally reactive to trying to be proactive. So I'm open to any questions anybody may have, or Clay.
Couple questions I have. When you look at the first page of the memo, it talks about each one of the millages and the increase and what it would be per year, the $30 to $39. If you look at the second page, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. It shows that it's on the 5.5, it shows it's $38 and not $39. and the 5.25 is $20, not $30. Am I looking at that correctly, or is that chart incorrect? That's the one I'm looking at.
Okay.
If you look at those numbers under the real property, it talks about a $3 increase, $20 increase, $38. These numbers here. You said it was a $39 increase, it was a $30 increase, but it's showing different numbers on here. Which ones would be the, so if you go off of the first page of the memo there, when it talks about the $30 increase, $39
I don't
increase,
think that is.
are those not the same numbers? That's when I read it, that's what I took those as.
Well, you had a different document.
Oh, on the table?
Yes.
Was that the original renewal that changed? The auditor came back with the revised totals on the January 9th? Yeah.
This was 38 and change, closer to 39.
Right, but that's a
That
big
one,
difference
We're
between
going,
30 and
yeah,
20.
we're going from 153
To 183.
no, to 192.
To 192. I don't think this is correct.
Which one is incorrect?
The one.
The
on
chart?
this sheet. Chart.
The chart is incorrect, okay.
Chart.
Because we're going from, there's another chart we got from the county.
Okay, can we get an updated chart
Sure.
sent to us, please?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the other sheet.
And we're talking about,
That's
this will be a $39 increase per year, not per month.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
So could you clarify for me, Clay, the difference between a 5 mil renewal and a 5 mil replacement?
A renewal would leave the current reduction factors in place. So right now, if you look at the property tax, the amount of revenue that was guaranteed on that original levy from 2014, that's the most the township can collect. So what happens over time, as more houses are built, as more property value increases, millage rates go down. So the effective millage goes down. So the renewal would simply maintain the status quo. A replacement would reset all of that and allow the capture of any increased values that have accrued since the original levy was enacted.
And a simple renewal would not allow for the change in language that you had
No.
proposed?
No, we'd have to keep the language intact
Exactly the
from
same.
the original.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any idea what would we need to ask for as far as an increase if we could not be pulling monies in from the JEDs and the TIPs?
We asked for a 5 to a 5.75 mil. It'd be a 6 mil or more.
So it's saving us about a half a mil, millage-wise, with the monies we're bringing in from the TIPs and the JEDs,
Well, also from the seizure
and the
funds.
seizures. Okay.
So we're expecting, because of change in DOJ handcuffs earlier from former administration to now, some of that money starting to come in. As an example, we just received $88,000 from 2014 seizures that we just replaced all our MDTs or the mobile computers with. None of that money has come out of our operating funds.
Okay.
So it's all seized money. We're expecting more and more of that to come in.
So we are seeing Austin Landing and Dayton, or Kings Ridge, are actually now paying into police operations.
Correct. As I said, the Kings Ridge was $900,000 for security upgrades. None of that was out of levy money. We wouldn't have been able to do that, make the security upgrades we needed, along with keeping the personnel. We're looking at now doing the same thing. This took a little different thought toward the Austin JEDs and TIPs, is more toward funding a police officer. And then again, as I said, we have 140 some, they're called DAGs, which is a separate document to the government for money. I think we have about 140 of them out there right now. So however long it takes them to start funneling the money toward us, I don't expect having to use any money out of the budget for capital items in the next 10 years.
And one of our sworn officers is now a resource officer at the middle school, is that
And
correct?
the school is
The school is providing
providing
it.
80% of that.
Correct.
And we hope to have another one through Dayton Christian next school year. Again, 80% of that and the overtime that's created out there through through activities, not investigations, activities, will be covered by Dayton Christian.
Okay. So we are increasing our reach and our exposure,
Yes.
not only through the township, TIFs and JEDs, but also within the school district.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. We will now open the meeting up for public comments. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please come to the podium. I think we have the,
Yeah, we have Miss Adair.
that's you.
Yep.
You're up, come on up. Yep. Make sure that the little red button is up. Then we can hear you. You can pull the microphone down in front of you.
Okay. Hello?
That's it, you're on.
Okay, I'm Joanna Dare. I live at 5691 Cobblegate Drive, and I'm right behind Meyer. And Mr. Morris knows who I am, and Chris and Kyle, you guys have spoke to me on the phone. So I don't know, do you want me to start from the beginning, or do you want me to just kind of do some updates?
I think updates would be, I think most of us know.
Most of you guys
What
know.
the issue,
Yes.
the initial issue was, so, yeah.
Okay, Myers has been very compliant. They did move the trucks from the one side that was back in the corner closest to behind, my unit. They did bring it back at one point for about a week. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I'm sure you guys remember that. I don't like the fact that I turned into a crazy person, but that's what it does to me. I've been to countless doctors since then from that. I don't like that either. I'm not a doctor person, but because everybody kept saying, well, it's your ears. Well, here's the thing. I don't hear that sound everywhere I go. So I do know that this is coming from that source in some way. And as much as I've studied about this, unfortunately, it's consumed a little bit of my life. But I need to have a happy medium. I've talked to some more neighbors, did a little bit more research. Apparently, they they never come to a trustee meeting, but they did come to a zoning meeting, and it was back in 2015. I have a letter here from a woman named Brenda Duran or something, and I believe they may have spoke with you, Kyle. It was a whole thing about the noises and that, everybody back there was complaining they couldn't get peace, blah, blah, blah. I've recently come across this. So I have found out there have been more people than just me talking about it. But unfortunately, what's happened now is most of them are older than I am, and they have actually said they gave up. But at this point, I can't give up because I have been actively looking for another house to move, and it's just not working financially and blah, blah, blah. So with that, since Myers did finally move the trucks, there is still a sound that is left, and it's sort of like a low-frequency rumble. I've done everything in my power to try to prove that it's not Meyer. I have knocked on the neighbors' doors. Are you running anything? I think you saw that in the email. I asked if they have refrigerators in their garage, something that's bumped up against the wall that would cause this rumbling sound. They all claim no. So when I go outside, you have to really hear it because, of course, it's more open. It's there. I can hear it. A lot of people can't. Some can. But what it's doing, especially at night, because the neighborhood used to just really be so quiet, believe it or not, even right behind Meyer before they did the renovation, that you could almost really hear a pin drop across the street, or I could. And now, when it is that quiet, the rumble has found a host, and that host seems to be my condo. because the sound lifts and it spreads, and that's what it's looking for. Now, I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to get insulation in my attic, and I have also seeked out getting a new garage door, because the way I'm figuring the noise that is bouncing from them is hitting the brick condos across the street, coming back in my front window. I have a dryer vent that faces that side, so I'm thinking it's coming down the dryer vent, going down the back wall. I know that it all sounds really nuts, but I want this just to stop. And again, they've been very compliant about the trucks. There are days, and Chris was just explaining to me the other day, after my email, they came over about 3:30. The sound was still there, but when I sent that email that morning, oh my God, with the trucks, it was just crazy. Now, with the trucks gone, the sound that is still there seems to be coming, the best I could guess, is they've got something like ventilation system that you guys hear sitting up on top of their roof, and because they're a little bit lower than the way my condo is set, I'm guessing that it could be that. I've been down there countless times myself in the middle of the night, during the day. Again, it's consumed me. I don't know if it is that. I have even contacted an acoustical engineering company, but unfortunately they were $150 an hour. I just wanted, again, I was trying to do everything to prove that maybe it wasn't them. I've shut off all the breakers in my home, you know, like hoping that it was the refrigerator I got, you know. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. So with this, and the lady that did this back in 2015, again, she has moved but kept the condo and now rents it. But it's the same scenario, and other people have given up, and at this point, I feel like I can't give up, so I'm just asking for help to where, you know, if there a noise ordinance that does need to be updated back from 1972 that you guys have in place. Coincidentally, I looked up Miami Township something recently, and it turns out there's another Miami Township in another part of Ohio.
There's 5 of them in the state of Ohio.
Yeah. Well, they actually really recently did do an updated to a noise ordinance. Coincidentally, it was really funny because I thought it was you guys. And as I was reading it, it was just put in place.
The only problem if we were to do a noise ordinance is they would be grandfathered in on until they would do a renovation on the building, just like with an ADA compliance. They would be grandfathered until they did any renovation on the building, if is what I'm understanding.
Right.
Possibly.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, now.
So I think what we need to first find out is we got to figure out what's making the noise.
Correct.
Because we can't fix what we don't know.
I fully agree. And if it is the thing that sits on top of their building, I was wondering if they maybe like put up like a shield to make the noise deflect towards
can we
741.
Have some discussions with Meyer to see if we can figure out what the noise.
Well, they're probably not going to know. I've even been in the store because I shop there. I mean, I don't dislike them. It's just, you know, but inside the store, it's even loud from their ventilation. So yes, I think if we just try to figure out what the source actually is, it would make it a lot easier. I've done everything in my power to try to figure out what it is before I sent that email again last week. And I've actually been doing this since October, when you guys have first talked to me. So this October, November, December, and now January. So I don't want anything to be costly like this to Meyer. I mean, you know, I don't want to do anything of that nature, but I really just kind of want some peace in my home. And I'm actually going to put out what I can for the insulation in the garage door. Okay, I just worry that may not fix it. If you guys have any suggestions of me, I'm perfectly happy in helping try to figure out this source. I seeked out the acoustical engineering company, but I just can't do $150 an hour.
Well, why don't you let us
unless they figure it
get
out
our-
in an hour.
Yeah. Chris, you have a comment?
Well, we've been in contact with Meyer, certainly in the past, over this. I think, again, it is partly an issue of they have made changes over the last year, and obviously moving trucks. It is partly an issue of trying to determine if it is a noise that's being generated from Meyer, and if it is where on the property. Certainly if you have talked with other neighbors that are hearing something, it would be helpful to hear from them to say, this is what they're hearing, or this is the time of day they're hearing it, if they can narrow that down in any way.
Would you like me to get that information for you?
Well, if you know of somebody that is saying that they've heard it, I can certainly speak with them and get that.
Okay, so.
If you have a neighbor that you've talked with, you can give me their name and contact information. I can contact them.
Okay. Well,
If they're comfortable with that, but.
yeah, he's a little strange. His name is Carl. I can't remember his last name. I'll have to go knock on his door. I had his number, but I misplaced it. That was just one person. I've spoke to others down Orchard Run. Some have went ahead and moved also now. Various
Ms.
reasons.
Adair, could I ask one clarifying question? I thought I heard you say that this noise happened after the renovation? It wasn't there prior to the recent renovation in the last few years?
I moved in 14, and I don't remember any noises like this. And in this past year, I'm assuming it's because I even told them the economy is very good. And they even said, yeah, they had a banner year. And I'm sure that that's some of it with the trucks, the amount of trucks. So I kind of feel in a way that we've come to kind of a happy agreement on the trucks. I just do worry if they bring back that turkey truck again, because that's pretty much what set me off in October. However,
Yeah, my only thought was you had commented that it may have happened after the renovations, or it might be potentially a
Right,
rooftop
seems-
heating or cooling unit. I don't know if part of the renovations, they did complete HVAC renovations. Did they install new compressors? Did they put in new freezers? I don't know the complete
Right.
extent of the renovation, but that might help narrow the gap if that's part of the issue.
I don't know if they've
That's true.
indicated that they did any changes to that equipment, but,
or maybe they need it replaced if they didn't. It could be that as well, like maybe something's getting ready to go out. I phoned them the other night, and, I even told them it could be that. You guys might want to get that checked. Either way, the sound lifts and it comes up and it sort of bounces off the buildings. I hear it. Not everyone does. I don't like the fact that I guess I should be grateful that I can hear that well. You guys have my information. I just like to get it stopped.
If you have those,
Get
if
figured
you can
out.
get Chris the names of the other neighbors, he'd more than happy to reach out to him and see if we can't try and pinpoint where this is coming from, so we can, as soon as we figure out where it's coming from, then we can
Right.
try and figure out what the fix is.
Well, this one lady here, Brenda, again, she owns the condo but has moved. I think she said that I could talk to her anytime. They were doing some suggestions back in 2015 about building a wall and all this kind of stuff, and then I
We
printed it out.
don't want to talk about building walls right now.
I'm sorry?
Touchy subject, building walls. Don't be
Oh,
bringing
no,
that up right now.
oh, right.
Come on now. Chris, will you get with her after the meeting and get the names of those neighbors, and we'll move on from there?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not going to work because the sound actually lifts. So that would be a waste of money on Meyer's end.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say.
Okay. I was just teasing on the wall thing.
Yeah, well, I'm for that wall, so sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk.
All right, we'll now move into the consideration of vote of resolutions and motions.
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor permit for El Toro Mexican Bar Grill number 2466444, if I remember the permit number correctly.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Culp,
Aye.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 003-2019, a resolution to authorize the sale of a police canine to Officer Douglas Hessler. Therefore, be it resolved in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 9.62, Miami Township Board of Trustees authorizes the sale of canine Coron to Officer Douglas Hessler in the amount of $1, effective February 3, 2019.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 004-2019, a resolution to authorize the Township Administrator to execute the necessary documents to secure an agreement with the Montgomery County Records Commission and Microfilming Board. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees authorizes the Township Administrator to execute the necessary documents to secure an agreement with the Montgomery County Records Commission and Microfilming Board and establishing rates for the creation and storage of microfilm records from January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019, as outlined in the agreement on file with Miami Township.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye. Do you want to read the resolution, or do we? Do we have the right numbers for it right now?
I think we do. It was the first numbers in the memo. The chart is the one that was,
Wrong.
those were the old numbers before it went to the auditor, so.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 005-2019, a resolution to declare it necessary to renew a tax levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the police department. Therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Miami Township, Montgomery County, Ohio, 2/3 of all members elected thereto concurring that it is necessary to levy a tax in excess of 10 mil limitation for the benefit of the unincorporated area of Miami Township, Montgomery County, Ohio, for the purpose of paragraph J, section 5705.19 of the revised code, providing and maintaining motor vehicles, communications, other equipment, buildings, and sites for such buildings used directly in the operation of the police department, or the payment of salaries of permanent or part-time police communications or administrative personnel to operate the same, including the payment of any employer contribution required for such personnel under section 145-48 or 742.33 of the revised code for the payment of other related costs at a rate not exceeding 5.5 mils for $1 of valuation, which amounts to, which was the,
190, like 92.5?
55.
Oh, 55?
55
No, that's,
dollars per $100 evaluation.
which amounts to, yes, for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
what's the number I need?
0.550.
.550 for each $100 evaluation for 5 years, and which is replacement of an existing levy of 5 mils commencing in 2019, first due in calendar 2020, and be it further resolved, said levy be placed on tax list to be collected in the calendar year of 2020 if a majority of the electors voting therein vote in favor thereof, and be it further resolved, the fiscal officer of this Board of Trustees be and is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to the Board of Elections, Montgomery County, Ohio, not less than 90 days before the election upon which it will be voted, and notify the Board of Elections to cause notice of election on the question of levying said tax to be given as required by law.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Yes, I would like to make a few comments so my thoughts are not misconstrued in any way. I am in absolute support of our police department. I want to absolutely commend Chief Hess, Captain Stegemeyer, and every one of our officers. Without question, we are doing more with less. We are doing a tremendous service to our community, and that was shown in the recent election, an unprecedented support of our police department. I'm honestly quite unsure if that support will prevail with an increase in millage. I've got an unprecedented number of people reaching out to me saying, we love what you're doing, continue to do more with less. I don't want to put our department at risk of not being funded if there's a tremendous amount of folks who don't want to vote for this because it's an increase. I'm simply unsure whether an increase would pass, and my thoughts are we need to just make sure that's part of this consideration. So I appreciate the motion. I will encourage everyone to vote in support of whatever resolution this board passes, but I'm also just leery on whether or not an increase is the right thing to do at this time. That's my thought.
And I appreciate the comments, Mr. Morris, thank you. And I think the reason why we're putting this on in May is that we will get the full temperature of the electorate. And if it is not passed in May, then I would be in full support of coming back with a 5 mil, I don't know that I would call it the renewal, it would be the replacement, so we could just change the language. Correct. But take it back to the 5 mil for the November election, is my thought on this going this year. So, any other discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
No.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
All right. We'll move into elected officials' comments. Mr. Newell.
I have nothing.
Mr. Colt.
Yeah, I'd like to commend the road crews, first of all, regarding I know we mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to mention, today at work, I received an unsolicited comment from a Miami Township resident that their roads in the West Carrollton area were very clean and well taken care of. So it's certainly noticed by the residents. Secondly, I'd like to comment on an issue that's concerning the community right now at large. Wright State University currently has a strike going on regarding the faculty, and it's a little bit of a tug of war between the administration and the faculty there at Wright State University. I'm sure there are dozens, if not hundreds, of students in our community that attend Wright State University, and they're negatively impacted by this, and I encourage the administration and the faculty to work together and come to a solution. Wright State's had a lot of problems in the last few years, and I think this is something they don't need.
Thank you, Mr. Colt. Mr. Morris.
I'm not sure how many of the administrators, members of the administration, or other trustees are planning to attend this year's Ohio Township Association Conference, which is scheduled for January 30th and January 31st. I would hope that some folks are planning to attend. If you do, I'd encourage somebody to look at a session being presented by the OTALA called Building Sustainable Communities. It's part of the Ohio State outreach effort, and I happened to see this presentation at another Ohio Township Association event, and I'd like to ask the administration to look into potentially bringing this resource to our community and maybe facilitate some ongoing discussions. Talks about what a sustainable community is, but it really gives focus, seeks feedback from the community and looking at, the direction the community wants to go, how to build a sense of purpose. So those that may be attending, I encourage you to look at the Building Sustainable Communities, and I would ask the administration to perhaps look into bringing them here to talk with us about a proposal in the township.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I'll now make a motion that we adjourn to executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal finance statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions, respecting requests for economic development assistance in accordance with ORC 121.22 G8 at 6:53 p.m.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Culp.
Aye.
And we do not expect any legislation pending after the executive session. All right, we have returned from executive session. I make a motion we adjourn our Board of Trustees meeting at 7:23 p.m.